Hi, how are you? My name is Houston and welcome back to another video. What has it been, like 3 weeks? Something like that? The usual, dude. It's just summertime. I feel like once winter rolls around, or even just like the fall, I'll probably have a lot more time to make videos. But I'm also like really into the swing of marathon prep right now. So yeah, there's just a lot of time that I'm spending nearly every day training. So if I'm not going for a run, then I'm normally in the gym, strength training. And sometimes, some days, I'm doing both of those things. Like I said, I want to talk about things in these intros that I've been enjoying lately. And one thing that I've been sort of revisiting that really inspired me to make this specific video in the first place was this podcast called The Explorers Podcast. So I found this a couple years ago because I was looking for a better, more comprehensive, unbiased view of Hernan Cortez and his conquering of the Aztec Empire. The Explorers Podcast was recommended to me by my friend Bryce, and I really enjoy what I believe the host name is Matt Breen does with his work. So he, again, unbiased view. He's not really taking the side of either people. He is putting the just human nature on display from both sides. Obviously, the conquistadors or the Spanish or the explorers were pretty bad. There are a lot of moments where the indigenous people were pretty brutal as well. That's beside the point, though. I haven't listened to it in a while, a couple years, in fact. And just out of curiosity, like it popped up on my feed, a new episode, and I realized that he recently did an episode on Francisco Pizarro. So it's always interesting to me to learn more about these ancient American cultures, like, you know, the Olmecs, the Aztecs, the Inca, the Mayans, right? I mean, they have so much fascinating history that unfortunately was lost to us because these Europeans came over, and if they didn't ravage these people really unintentionally with smallpox, then they did take them, enslave them, conquer them, and unfortunately take a lot of their cultural relics, things like gold, silver, go through their temples, just raid, pillage, melt things down for the gold and the precious gems that were within them. And we just really lost, or they lost, a lot of stuff that was important to their culture and would have given us in the modern world an idea of, a better idea at least, of how those cultures live. I'll get more into this in the video, but I just want to say that listening to this series has brought my attention to this feeling that it has given me. And I've been thinking about a lot. And from everything that I've read so far, it is something called, or something similar to, temporal vertigo, or what might be known as historical empathy. So as we dive into both of these phrases, I just want to say that we're switching up the game again. We're going to be playing some Wu Chang. I recently finished Death Stranding 2, and just crazy, unreal. I still got to write my review. I'm still absorbing it, but yeah, let's get into Wu Chang. Yeah, so here we are on Wu Chang. Pretty solid Souls-like so far. Combat feels good, which is, as you know, my main thing with these games. The map, overall level design, seems massive, and you can go like a million different ways, but everything seems to be pretty intentional. Like I said, still right at the beginning of the game, so yeah, I don't know how the whole entire thing will pan out. But anyway, back to the whole Pizarro thing. So I'm listening to this podcast, and of course the Spanish did a ton of horrible things. The Inca people also seem to be incredibly brutal. That doesn't mean that they deserve to be conquered or anything, but as far as we know, based off the records that we have of the events, you know, they're all, or pretty much all, from the Spanish side. So of course they're going to paint themselves in a more positive light than what actually went down. As I'm listening to this, though, I'm thinking about how it happened, 500 years ago. And it's almost like incomprehensible how we have the records or something like that, or we have the ability to read about something like that so far into the future. It's hard for me to put into words, and honestly, that's why I had to do a bunch of research about it to like see like what this phenomenon was. And that's where I came across temporal vertigo. And it's this feeling that people were really there and now we are here. And I know that sounds trite, and it's really easy to like make this sound like I'm 12 and this is deep, but I feel like reflecting on the idea that we really are so oh my god, we really are so privileged to be able to just read about these people that lived and these things that happened. And like I said, it's almost hard to believe that it was actually so. If you've ever been somewhere that's extremely old, like if you've ever stood in front of ruins of an ancient civilization, or just been around something that, again, it doesn't, like, you don't have to be at Machu Picchu, for instance, to experience this. You could just be around, like, let's say a military fort that was really active like 100 years ago. These places hold this sort of, this awe to them that if you just stand there, and sometimes I will go to places like that and I'll close my eyes and imagine the bustling that would be around you. 100 years from, or 100 years into the past from now, would be 1925. So imagine a post World War I, pre World War II army fort, how they might be recovering, rebuilding, how they might be, and this is probably like a lot more, or not probably is, it's definitely a lot more felt in places in Europe or the old world, because nothing American, at least in the United States, is really older than and I mean like colonial structures and things like that are older than this country has been founded, or when people came over here from Europe. You can stand in like Pennsylvania, for instance. You could be in Independence Hall and stand in the very room that the founding fathers of this country stood when they signed the Declaration of Independence. So you can definitely experience that, but I feel like there's something more powerful and different, or I guess maybe not more powerful, because it depends on what you're, what sort of history you actually enjoy. There's definitely something different about being in a place where it was alive and a different type of people living so different of lives existed like 500, 1,000 years ago. Or I don't have the privilege of ever having been to pyramids, but I can imagine that being somewhere that was active 3,000 to 5,000 years ago and being in the presence of those structures would absolutely floor me. That's one of the reasons that I really want to go to Greece. I really want to go to see like the Parthenon and the Painted Porch, and just to experience these places that so many of the people, so many of the thinkers that I look up to now from ancient history used to walk through. I've always loved history, so I don't know why this feeling is now hitting me so powerfully. Just listening to this story about extremely brutal conquistadors. We're all existing in this river of time, right? And we're all part of the river. We're all flowing down it. We're not standing on the edge of the stream. But sometimes when we take a step back and when we start to notice our place in this moment of time, like if human beings, if Homo sapiens started really existing 300,000 years ago, then like we have really only existed, modern humans have only existed for like 0.007% of time that the earth has existed. To stand on the edge of the river and see one tiny drop of water pass by like that, and you're like, oh, that's human existence. But within that tiny drop of water is so much substance, is so much chaos, so much greatness, so much happiness, sadness. You know, like Carl Sagan said about the pale blue dot photo, every enemy, every conqueror, every friend, every lover, every parent, child, every single person that has ever existed is within that one tiny pale blue dot. That actually brings us to the overview effect too, because this temporal vertigo is something that is like the temporal version of the overview effect, which a lot of people that are like every person that goes to space, especially people who are up in the ISS, experience. And it's this feeling of seeing the Earth from outside the Earth and seeing that, like, I'm a part of that, but I'm not there right now. As I sit with all these thoughts, I am reminded, even if I am just part of that single water drop, I still can contribute something. And it's kind of funny because I have said on this channel before that it's very unlikely that being a single human being, you're going to like make a huge impact on the world. Like something that I've said is it's really hard to change the world, but it's pretty easy to change your world. To have an effect on the people and the places in your immediate vicinity is so easy. It's a lot more achievable than trying to change the whole entire planet or the shape of human history. To some people, that might not be that motivational, but to me, I find that very empowering. I feel like it helps me understand the kind of effect that I can have on the people around me and how that effect is nothing small. Another thing I've thought about too is this idea of like the transference of knowledge. If I had the capability when I was born, or let's say a 30-year-old in 1994, if they were listening to this podcast or like another story about a historical figure in 1994, how much would it change from what I'm hearing? So like, would the information have changed? Would it be better? Would it be worse? Assumedly, it would be worse if it did change. This idea that we have all these stories that already exist. We have all these people and these memories and these writings that already exist by the time we're born, and they've long existed. They've long been around, and so many generations before you have learned about them or have gone out of their way to write about them or discover new things about them. And it's just ready and available to us, like right as we're born. Again, that's another thing where you can contribute to that knowledge that is just going to exist for the next generation or the generation after that. Or you never know, maybe something that you find out or maybe something that you discover will be one of those things that just stands the test of time. I mean, in my opinion, that's not why you should do it. Like, you shouldn't do it for the notoriety around it, but it's something that you can surely consider. All this stuff really resonated in this quote that I found when I was doing some reading about this. And it's from a photographer named Susan Sontag. It's something like, all photographs are memento mori, which means remember you will die. To take a photograph is to participate in a person or a thing's mortality, vulnerability, and mutability. When you see an old picture or an old painting of a person that is long gone, long past, you have to sit there and wonder, what was this person's life like? What were they like? How did they come to get this photo taken of them? What happened to the person taking the photo? And maybe it's just a photo, right? So perhaps nothing special, but it is interesting to think about how some person's just normal photo, let's say from like, I don't know, like 1950, might inspire somebody to take up 1950s fashion, and that becomes their whole entire personality. So just this simple, normal, everyday life thing of getting your photo taken 75 years ago might be the thing that catalyzes a person's whole entire career. You know, maybe they go into the fashion industry. Maybe they are obsessed with suits or something, like the menswear guy on Twitter. And then even while looking at a photo or reading about something or listening to a podcast, you're never really glimpsing everything either. You're just getting an account of it. And a lot of the time, you're probably getting a memorized account of it, because how much of this stuff was actually written right in the moment? Imagine everything that we read about, like the Battle of Thermopylae, or like, 300. Look how insane the 300 movie is. Imagine how different, and obviously it's sensationalized, but imagine how different the actual event was. The stories of Jesus are probably a great example too, because if I'm not mistaken here, the first books of the Bible were written, or sorry, the New Testament, were written like 30 or 40 years after the death of Jesus. So how much are these people really remembering? Like, how accurate are these things that they're telling us? And this really just applies to anything. I mean, just think about how bad your own memory can be in a lot of moments like that. You're not really getting the full story a lot of the time. And it will always be a mystery too, which is the crazy thing. So I'm very likely never going to get the full story of Pizarro and the Inca Empire. And that's okay. But it is pretty interesting to think about how I, in 2025, am able to just like even experience that, even able to take part in history just by listening to it. I'm not scared of time passing by any means. I think it's more fascinating than anything. I've talked about this before, and we do live like in the grand scope of things, right? If all of human existence is, again, that 0.007%, I don't even know the math of just like one normal human life, like 80 or 90 years on this planet. That has to be just infinitesimally small. But you really can do a lot with the time that you have in one life. I mean, even after 30 years, I feel like my life is really just getting started, or really started when I was like 25. So if I've accomplished in my own eyes how much I have from 25 to 30, both as a person, professionally, or just anything, then I think there's so much hope for the next, hopefully, 45, 50 years. That really, really does make me excited to just live my life, to exist, to be part of that time as a human being on Earth. This is going to be some giant poisonous bug type thing, creature, just disgusting, poisons me every single chance it can get, because it kept on giving me purple camellia, which is a cure for poison in this game, and I hate it already. Amazing. Part of me is skeptical about trying to beat this boss in this video, because I'm trying to not make this video an hour long. But the simple solution has to be just dying like a dozen times or 24 times, and then I'll just put the very last run in the video, right? Right? This is easy, 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 easy. Didn't mean to do that. Oh my god, dude, I can't be losing those. Come on, get stunned, idiot. Come over here. I should hit him. That would help. Nice. Die. Yes. Taoist token, believer statue. I think I got a weapon too. Oh yeah. I mean, that didn't even take me a dozen tries. I think that was my 4th or 5th try. So Yeah, I kind of know what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm thinking this guy plays Souls-likes. I'm thinking this guy has played Dark Souls before, or Elden Ring, or Sekiro. Yeah, I play games where character has a sword. I didn't even parry against that boss either. I don't even know if you can. You probably can against their blades, their blade hands. I am probably just gonna finish up what I'm doing in this area, but now is a perfect time to end the video because I just beasted that boss. Yeah, maybe think about the idea of temporal vertigo or historical empathy. Think about your position in human time and space and how relevant your actions are for the world around you. Again, not the world, but your world, your community, the people you interact with the most on a day-to-day basis. You never know the ripple effect that just like one human life can have. Like, how much are you adding to that droplet of water within the river of time? For me, it can't be overstated how thankful I am that anybody would view any of these videos or would listen to what I have to say, because I'm just a guy. But as always, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.